Hello, I'm Dale Matthews. This is Inside News, and Mike Jones is with us too. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Dale. Meltdown 3.
Welcome to chapter 753. That's a little inside joke for you guys that have been watching. Welcome to chapter 753 of Cheryl Walker's Meltdown and the end, almost the official end of her run for county commissioner. But first, this message from our sponsor. No, first we're going to see the last of 9 candidates who appeared several years ago on a Tuesday at a Republican gathering where they invited people from all over the place to come and talk about their candidacies. And this one is Ron Smith. Ron?
Yeah, it was actually only a week and a half ago.
It just seems like such a long time ago, Mike.
Yeah.
Shows are running so long. Mike's going to cue me in when 45 minutes gets here. Okay,
yes,
okay.
I am indeed.
Here we go. Ron Smith.
Thank you all for coming. I'm Ron Smith, Commissioner candidate position 3. My family moved here over 100 years ago. I was born right here in Grants Pass. I understand rural communities. I understand what it takes for a rural community to survive. We're in trouble, folks. 67% of our land area is controlled by the federal government. The federal government is not letting us do what we traditionally did. Traditionally, we produced natural resources that made America strong. If you look back, and if this was a business, and you look back at the 70 years, and you've seen that we were successful for a long time, and then all of a sudden we had a downturn, you'd want to say, what changed? What changed? What changed with land use? What changed with Senate Bill 100? What changed is extreme environmentalism? What changed is the federal government's attitude towards our property and towards our access to the public domain. This is what the commissioners deal with on a daily basis. I've experienced dealing with the Forest Service and the BLM. I've dealt with them all my life. Almost everything I've done since I was a young man had to do with public domain. This is what the commissioners are going to deal with on a daily basis. Yeah, we have some problems in our funding, but I'd rather not look at managing an ever-shrinking budget. I'd rather figure out how to make it grow. And the way it's going to grow is the O&C lands. That land was set aside for the counties to have a permanent stream of revenue. The reason we're having discussion about funding the county sheriff is that land is not available. We just had our last sawmill shut down. A possibility of 120 jobs gone, and yet nobody cried. Nobody in the city paid attention. Shame on you. That's our last sawmill. My family had a family sawmill out in the Illinois Valley. The mill pond's still there. There were a lot of sawmills in this country because we produced a product that America needed. You know where our wood comes from today? Canada. We'll ship boatloads of whole logs off of New Zealand tree farms because it's cheaper to do that than to fight the environmentalists to harvest our own trees. Do you see a problem with that? I think I see a major problem with that. Okay, so the answer to our problems in the county is going to be land use. People come into this county, they come in and they want to bring their money and they want to start a business. What do they run into? Zoning and planning, and Senate Bill 100 and LCDC. These are the things that are stranglers in our economy. This is what a commissioner has to deal with on a daily basis. This is where we need to focus. We need to focus on making our budget grow instead of worrying about pinching pennies on an ever-shrinking budget. We need to go after the federal government on the law that says the O&C lands were set aside for permanent revenue stream for the counties. That's an answer. That's the answer we need to do. I've got a program that will put $2.5 million into the sheriff's budgets within my first year in office, just by working with 2 departments. There's a lot of money out there in timber products, but we're not going to access them because we have to stand up to the extreme environmentalists. The Biscuit Fire burned 500,000 acres, the largest fire in Oregon. I FOIA'd the first 8 days of that fire. I got a stack of paperwork that big. I read through that paperwork and I realized that they didn't really care. They didn't really care if that fire burned all those trees. 17 frivolous environmental lawsuits on that land and thousands of trees still rotting in the forest. Brush pastures burned up, built up underneath that forest, and now what we're waiting for is another lightning strike. And we're going to have another big fire. We had the buckskin fire in the same place. These are the issues that a commissioner deals with. He deals with 67% of the land. You better realize that that's an important issue, that our land base is the key. Josephine County's future will hang on land use and our abilities to access the land and use that land for our economy. I'd rather look at building our budget instead of managing the pennies that we're losing.
Okay. So we have been getting a little bit of feedback from a couple of candidates. Well, my candidate spoke a lot longer than, whatever. It doesn't matter which candidates we're talking about. We know that. And I suggested, Mike absolutely agrees, that during our show here, we played the entire thing back on the first night. And then since then, 9 times in a row, we played back the candidates and what they had to say with no questions, nobody jumping on them. Keith Hick really got toasted that night. We thought what we'd do is just play it back with nobody grabbing at them. Okay, and then
right. And this is essentially the comments that they made up there before they opened it up to questions to each of these candidates.
Right, and so we thought it would be more fair this way to let them say their thing before people started jumping on them. And so that's why we're playing it back. Well, my candidate spoke for an hour and a half. Yes, but we're only playing back the 7 minutes or whatever where they were not challenged by anybody. It seemed more fair that way. Now, we've played back the whole thing. It's out there for you to see. We will be playing out excerpts but we're not commenting. It just seemed, because I'm running, I know it's a hassle. Because I'm running, I didn't want anyone thinking, well, they're just not being fair. We're being very fair as fair can be. And what Mike and I are planning is having a night where we invite all the candidates, once we know who they are, to come out and appear on our show without comment, again, from me or from Mike. Just say your thing. Get it out there to everybody. It really helps all of us. Hey, it helps me. If you say exactly what you think, people are going to look at that and go, oh, I got that person's number. Great. Let's do it.
And that program, the way we're planning this, is going to be exactly like the Meet the Candidates night that we already have posted, where everybody has the opportunity to say what they're going to say. Then there's an open question and answer period afterwards. And, that gets aired too. And so it's just like being there. And there isn't any sandbagging. This is a completely fair thing. I think it's a benefit to all involved, and we're hoping that that you'll be, if you're a candidate, that you'll be coming. It's tentative now, and as soon as we firm that up, we'll let you know.
Now, I've been keeping track of what the deadlines are and all. I mean, I already know what they are, but I want to be able to say it clearly to you. So I spoke with the clerk again today. Make absolutely sure that we know what the rules are. And this is open to everybody. That's what we do on this show. So Tricia Myers told me today that your candidate now has until the 8th, which is next Tuesday, today being Friday, to the 8th to put in your paperwork and your picture, to the 8th to register, okay? It's $50 to register. It's $300 to get your name and picture into the voters pamphlet. Listen, if you're not going to put your information in the voters pamphlet, what are you doing, right? And your picture. You've got 2 more days after that until the 10th, Thursday the 10th, by 5 o'clock to get your picture in and get your writing in, you or your candidate. You can send it in electronically. You can send them a JPEG if you know what that is. If you don't, ask a nearby 12-year-old. Okay, you can put all that in and send that to them, but you're also going to have to go down to the clerk's office before 5 o'clock on Thursday, have to sign something. You're going to have to give them the money, no kidding, and you must give them a paper copy of your picture. Even if it's just, doesn't look very good, it's not a beauty copy, that's okay. They put that in a file to make absolutely sure that when they put that in a voter's pamphlet, they open up the file and they say, oh, here's this not so good looking picture, but it does, well, in my case, not a good looking picture at all. And they say, okay, we're sure we've got the right person. One other thing which is completely new, I called Tricia and I said, I just want to thank you. This has never happened before. I got a call today from somebody in the clerk's office saying, just want to remind you when the deadlines are. Really? That never happened under Art Harvey. So I called her and I said, this is new, right? She said, yeah, I just thought it would be more fair that way. Thank you. Yeah. Yay. All right. So,
and this is just a sample of what it's like to have better people in office.
Right. And two wonderful guys running this show. We're telling you everything. Everything. So watch the show and buy things from our commercial vendors. Okay. So Mike.
Yeah. Yes, Dale.
Yes. Here is a little snippet because it does say Meltdown 3 of Cheryl Walker. She followed up on what Bill Hunker had said. Bill Hunker had said that that the numbers that Cheryl Walker was quoting about crime statistics in the Illinois Valley were simply not accurate. We know that because the last numbers we heard before just recently were 850%. It was up by 850, and now suddenly it's up by 500. You know, they're just saying anything that comes into their mind, but you know, that's actually a good trend. If it's gone from 850 down to 500% more, no, these are false numbers, okay? Everybody is keyed up because Cheryl Walker is dead set on asking the governor to come down here and take over. So here's Cheryl's reaction in the middle of the statements by the citizens, trying to explain why she's right and we're all wrong.
Anybody, if those crimes were in our area here in Josephine County around Grants Pass, people would be up in arms. But because it's Cave Junction, you're not up in arms, I find that offensive. That is absolutely inappropriate. I care as much about the people in the Illinois Valley as I do the ones in Williams, Murphy, Wolf Creek, or anywhere else in this county. And I find that offensive that someone does not want to include every citizen in this county because they're victims just like anyone else. And there are many crimes that are not going reported out there. In my own neighborhood, we have squatters living on BLM property up behind our farm. And those people take whatever they want to take.
You've got squatters on your property, it's personal.
There will be no further.
I've had squatters on my land.
Would you leave?
Yes, I certainly will.
Thank you. And there will be no further public comment today.
Oh, nice. Thanks a lot. That's ridiculous.
Okay. What was that guy talking about? He shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, he was talking about I guess you know, there's some squatters hanging out on BLM property, and that's part of the issue with the homeless that are allowed to do things in Grants Pass and then go out to you know, squat on government land. That's not a good thing. But you know, I was just thinking as she was saying that about what Bill Hunker said, you know, how he's expecting a lightning bolt to strike her during her comments there, because she was lying.
She was. And keep in mind on this BLM thing, the BLM pays the sheriff's department for a contract deputy to work with them. Now, she's a county commissioner. If the BLM has some problems, tell them about it, Mike.
Yeah, I would think that perhaps she might be able to influence that in some way. I believe she's the liaison to the sheriff's department.
She is, and this is what the guy was not doing it right. Okay, that's wrong. Don't do that. But what he was pointing out is this is a personal problem. It is. She is the liaison to the sheriff's department, as Mike said. So call the sheriff's department, say, BLM, listen, there's a problem with this. Here's what's happening. Her version of the story, it reminds me of Roy Lindsay telling a story. Her version of the story is they just come on down from their squatters camp and roam around the countryside at will, stealing things from everybody. Why, I put a pie out to cool, and they took the pie, and they're coming in and they're traveling across the country on rail car. No, that's the Depression. But you get the point. I mean, sure, it's chaos. It's chaos. Even Simon Hare said it's chaos. Bill Meyer at KMED, love the guy, but he says, I can't drive through Cave Junction without rolling up my windows.
I'm not sure how that would help you, but you know.
So, okay. So, once the commissioners talked about it and came to the conclusion that they were going to overrule Sherry Walker, this is very unusual. Then the citizens got a chance to speak again. Finally, here are the citizens once again. Sandy Casanelli, tell us a little bit about your feelings, please.
Sandy Casanelli, Roland, Oregon. I'm here today regarding the governor's letter we discussed yesterday. It seems that this board is plotting to blatantly circumvent the will of the electorate. We have consistently voted down 8 levies or taxing districts each and every time since 2004. And now you find nothing wrong with betraying the majority of those voters in Josephine County. Your actions are extremely duplicitous. You're crying about how horrible the crime is in Josephine County, but when you have the opportunity to genuinely make a difference, you won't. The county has given special permission, the county was given special permission from the state legislature so road reserve funds could be given to the sheriff, but at the last budget session, you refused to do it. You also would not give the sheriff money from the extra $1 million of timber receipts that you recently received. Yet you gladly entered into a contract to spend $675,000 over the next 5 years for water testing, but now steadfastly refuse to give that same general fund money to the sheriff since the testing was proven to be unnecessary. This fiscal crisis is nothing more than a fictitious creation of your own making. It is not the fault of a conservative electorate, but simply a reflection of your current will to not increase the sheriff's budget. Yesterday, you bemoaned the crimes in Illinois Valley that happened at night, but you have the contract employee patrolling the area during the day. Wouldn't it be far more prudent to have that deputy patrol at night when it is needed? The justification for your letter to the governor was based on anecdotal evidence rather than actual facts for the entire county. Oregon State Police crime stats do not support your premise that crime in Josephine County is rampant and at the state of a public safety emergency. But now you are more than willing to relinquish control of the county to the governor for the tantalizing allure of some matching fund money. This is short-sighted and not a sound fiscal decision in view of the other ramifications necessary to receive those funds. We don't need commissioners who will sell out our sovereignty. By allowing the governor to act on the county's behalf, you are abdicating your authority, which is clearly contrary to the vested power that is granted solely to the commissioners by our charter. You simply are acting like spoiled brats who are frustrated that you are not getting your own way. Thank you very much. May God bless Josephine County.
You know, I don't like that kind of thing. They're supposed to let the person finish their sentence, and she was right on top.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Casanelli. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, this is what happens. Listen, if you're going to be elected commissioner, you're going to have to deal with people who have opinions that you don't like. And you better be prepared to deal with that in a patient manner. In other words, Bill Hunker said some things that obviously rubbed Cheryl the wrong way. And she allowed that to affect her demeanor the entire rest of the meeting. So she's dealing with everybody in almost the same way. I think she dialed it back a little bit because she realized that she was overboard, especially with Sandy Casanelli there. But temperament, this is a problem with Cheryl. She doesn't like the people for the most part anyway, unless they're sycophants of hers. So this is the kind of thing that you can expect from her. You shouldn't have to ever deal with that. You would hope. I mean, could you imagine Raymond Smith up there? I mean, you want to talk about Captain Mild-Mannered? That guy treating people the same way Cheryl does? No way, because it's not in him to do that. So we need to have people, and I'm not saying that I'm just picking him out of there. It could be any number of people that are running now would have a better temperament.
And we've got some that are running that would have a worse temperament.
Yes, yeah, absolutely we do. I don't have any problem naming them by name. Dan DeYoung, come on. That guy is combative all of the time. He doesn't like people. He doesn't like the people of Grants Pass. And if he doesn't like the people of Grants Pass when it comes to matters of taxation, he's going to hate the people of the county, because the people of the county are even a little bit more counterculture than the people in the city there.
Now, you may also think that Joseph Rice is a great guy for many of the nice things that he's done, but you disagree with this guy, and he's going to take you to the back of the Ambassador and give you a sound, verbal thrashing. If we can ever find out when he's going to run, or if he's going to run, or anything at all. Talk about secretive. I mean, good luck with transparency with this guy, but that's another subject. There are people that just, you go, and brother. I don't even want to mention some of their names, because once they don't make it through the primary process, they're going to be looking for someone to blame. We got that with this, what's that character's name that thought he was doing a recall? Talk about F this and F that. And it sounds like Larry Graves at the airport board. Anyway, what is it that this letter that they're talking about? The Courier is simply not big enough, you see, to possibly run this letter so that you know what they're talking about. You're certainly not going to hear this letter on KJO. So we're going to do one of the things which is our most popular feature on this show.
Yes.
We're going to read aloud to you. So gather around this TV set, everybody. Bring the children in, and we're going to read something to you. I don't know how else to do this, Mike.
Well, this reminds me of there were times when my kid he loved it when being read to as a child. And so sometimes, you were in places where you didn't have anything to read to them. So I would take to reading things that were not kid stories and put them in a manner of, like you were reading Goldilocks and the Three Bears or something.
Oh, no. I don't want to do it that way, Mike. Yeah, please.
It was very entertaining for him. And,
So here's Cheryl's letter. We will read every word of her letter so that you know what we're talking about. Dear Governor Kate Brown, due to the imminent loss of funding for public safety services in our rural county of Josephine County and Curry, the 2013 legislature passed and Governor Kitzhaber signed House Bill 3453. The resulting Oregon law, Chapter 753, provides that the governor may proclaim a public safety fiscal emergency if the governor determines that fiscal conditions exist or are imminent that compromise the ability of the affected counties to provide a minimally adequate level of public safety services. Mike?
Over the past 3 years, the Josephine County funding for public safety services has continued to decline from the drastic reduction experienced in 2012. As of June 30th, 2017, county government will have spent the last of the revenue from the federal Secure Rural Schools funding. And there is no indication from any of our congressional delegation that there will be a renewal of these funds. The SRS was never adequate to fund our public safety services, but was a stopgap measure to allow for local government to find other funding solutions. Since 2012, the voters of Josephine County have rejected 4 different tax measures to provide funding for public safety.
The Oregon State Police have very generously and professionally assisted Josephine County with the need for public safety over the past 3 years, and we are very grateful for their presence. However, they do not and cannot substitute for the lack of adequate public safety services.
In Josephine County, most property crimes are not reported. Yeah, I don't know how she can substantiate that, but that's what she's saying here. In Josephine County, most property crimes are not reported. These are misdemeanors, usually theft. Murders have increased, requiring the state to investigate because we do not have any detectives. Burglaries are so frequent as to be considered by many as part of our culture. There's a little bit of fabrication in here, slightly, I'd say. Just in the past few months in Cave Junction, one of 2 incorporated cities in our county, there have been burglaries of businesses, churches, schools, and the public library. It does not matter if there is an alarm system, as the burglars cut the phone line so the alarm cannot transmit to the alarm company. And then there are not law enforcement officers to respond. The destruction and financial loss is alarming.
The lack of funding has caused the county to have to cut back the number of jail beds to where we can house mostly Measure 11 offenders. Sanctions by the Parole and Probation Department are difficult to enforce due to the lack of jail funding. We simply do not have the jail staff to hold offenders. We cannot afford to have staff to supervise offenders or work crews for community service.
Mm-hmm. The loss of funding required Josephine County to close our highly regarded juvenile justice center that provided shelter and counseling for troubled youth, and a detention facility for youth who had committed crimes. Without this facility, these young people who desperately need protection and assistance are left on the streets to become victims and criminals themselves. I might be overstating things just a little bit here. The tilt is decidedly one-sided in this letter so far.
It's an emergency. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. And the people are insane. I am the only sane person. That's not in her letter.
Right.
The Board of Commissioners has had to cut funding for all county services in an effort to keep the jail open. That's not true.
Yeah, that's not true either. Yeah, that is not at all true.
Not any part of that sentence is true.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit on a later night where we're talking about the use of economic development money in other departments, but not in the sheriff's department. We'll get to that later.
In 2012, Josephine County had 415 employees. Today, there's just over 300. There's a reason for that. About 100 employees left the service, I'm saying this now, of the county because the county screwed up in their dealings with them, and then they all walked out, and then we got sued, and it cost us nearly $1 million. Okay, that's
yeah, but
not from cutbacks from the commissioners.
But let me tell you something. We had it cut back to about 240 employees, and now we're all the way back up to over 300 again. What the heck here? You know,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The reduction in staffing came from all departments. No, it didn't. Not that one. Not just public safety, in an effort to keep a minimal level of public safety services. This is just flat out wrong. It's just a lie. That's completely not true. As of June 30, 2017, even this will not be sufficient, as we will lose 45% of our county public safety budget from fiscal year 2015 to 16 to 2016 to 17. This in addition to the 45% reduction we had in the previous 2014 to 15.
In fiscal year 2011-2012, before the loss of funding, the Josephine County Public Safety budget was $20,900,426. After the reduction of funding, fiscal year 2012-2013 public safety budget was $13,580,528. This fiscal year 15-16 is $9,143,000 and will likely be about the same for 2016-2017. However, with the loss of SRS funding, the budget for 2017-2018 will be reduced by $4 million.
What was imminent at the time of House Bill 3453 passed has now come to be. We have a public safety fiscal emergency in Josephine County.
Based upon the previously provided overview of Josephine County's financial situation as it is related to public safety, we hereby respectfully request that you consider these conditions and determine that a public safety fiscal emergency exists in Josephine County and provide assistance in accordance with Chapter 753, Oregon Laws 2013. Thank you for your consideration, CW, or Cheryl Walker.
Right. So this is the letter that she wants the other commissioners to sign on to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she said at the meeting when asked that nothing will be signed on Thursday. There will be no decision made on Thursday.
Yeah, and in reference to Thursday the 10th, but we have reason to believe that that is not the case, as they have on a number of occasions, listened to the merits of and voted on considerations in the back room without ever airing it in the Ambassador Auditorium. So,
and this is in direct contradiction to what she said in the little back room in the meetings I was in, that they would be making a decision on that day. They're going to make, according to what she said earlier, they're going to make a decision in that little back room with no public input on that day. And she wants the other commissioners to sign on. However, important to note is she says she can do it by herself and call down this fiscal emergency all by herself.
Mm-hmm. Another, not just the loss of sovereignty, local sovereignty here.
Your mic is overmodulating and cutting in and out there, bud.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what to do about that. It sounds exactly the same to me, and I have done nothing.
Okay.
Does it sound normal now?
No.
No.
But
okay.
people will understand you. They'll understand you. They're going to understand you. And in the meantime, let's go out to the next person that had something to say about this letter. Keep in mind, we didn't get a chance to read this letter. We had to pay for it to get a copy. It was not available during this meeting. And you've now heard it, many of you, for the very first time now on our show. So go look for it in the Courier. Right. Here we go. Here's what the next person had to say at the weekly business session.
Mike Jones, Grants Pass.
Much better audio now, Mike.
I haven't prepared any statement here, but I'll just go with the observations. On November 30th, there was a joint meeting between the county and the city in which basically devolved into a commiseration session about how stupid the people of the county are and how, you know, if they would just see the things our way and pass a levy. And then the councilors implored Cheryl Walker to save them and be the one to finally pass something. Because if you don't do it, no one will. And then we had her proposal for the 4 taxes. And that got shot down right away. And then we have this question. And of course, you know, a great deal of time was spent rewording and parsing how that was going to sound to the voters in the interest of coming up with a conclusion that would rationalize the action that now is planned to be taken, you know, just without consulting the public. And I would just suggest that we've now abdicated control. Jay Meredith is now the de facto county administrator, and he is feeding suggestions to the board, and now the board is planning to run with that. Again, also, I want to stand up for Bill Luger. I know darn well he didn't mean, he was talking about that statistic being not of great influence to the total in the Illinois Valley, and yet Cheryl knows that. She's not stupid. She hears just as well as everybody else, but there's an opportunity to politically spin that for her benefit. Okay, so I would just suggest that this is a very bad idea, and that we have other heads on the board that are not necessarily as politically inclined as Cheryl is to do this thing. This is done, I believe, greatly for the benefit of the government apparatus, not the people at all. We know, because there's a proposal on the ballot right now to get a few cents per thousand so that they can put extra retired people in the schools and to patrol those. You could just as easily, at a greatly reduced rate, you could just as easily take those people, put 1 or 2 of them in Cave Junction. Thank you very much.
Next, Mark Sliverman.
You know what's funny? I was, okay, I guess we're playing straight.
And I am running for position 3. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Hare and Commissioner Heck for their move this morning in the name of hearing the public. You to be commended for that highly. I live in the Illinois Valley, Commissioner Walker, and I've lived there 20 years. And I feel completely safe walking around my street and Selma. As far as Illinois Valley, Cave Junction, they've had a degree of crime, that's true. But this crime could have been stopped. The patrol deputy that the city of Cave Junction pays $160,000 for patrol does not work at night. Almost 100% of the crime or the burglaries is at night. All they need to do is switch them to the day, to the night, and they're not doing that. If there was such an emergency at Cape Junction, and some of the city councils feel that way, they might be asking you for road dollars. One deputy, 160,000. Now you claimed, well, look what happened out in Belize with a slide, and see what will happen? You know how much it costs to fix that slide in Belize? 50,000. I'm sure there's over, yes, that's what it said in the paper. Rob said that. Anyway, well, we can dispute that. Okay, now, people need to know that the history of this HB 3453, now it's called 753, our county legal counsel, Wally Hicks, put that tool in the toolbox, cell phone landline tax. And isn't it interesting? Wally Hicks now is a legal counsel. So there's the architect of the program. Now, Cheryl Walker, who I'm running against, has never met a tax or a regulation she didn't like. Budget committee person Margaret Goodwin wants a list of all the possible taxes that we could have. I think that's real good. Jay Meredith wrote a letter to you guys. Don't put it on the ballot, and guess what? Boom, he got exactly what he wanted. Now, I've been told in the past by Commissioner Heck and here, we're not going to declare a state of emergency, don't worry. This is what he told me personally. I certainly hope we stick to that. Having a 911 tax going around the voters' wishes is completely undemocratic. If you do this, and I get elected, or any other commissioner who is against this tax get elected, I assure you they will attempt to rescind it. This will be your legacy. It will be a lasting legacy, but the voters will turn this around against you. If there was truly an emergency, you would have put money into road dollars to the county or for Cape Junction. There are many differences between myself and Cheryl Walker. One is transparency, another is trust, another is integrity, another is voter responsiveness. Public nuisance, the way we stood on that, the way we stood on tax levies. How dare you try to even suggest you go to the governor? I'm going to have people call the governor up, call Herman Barshiger, call Wilson. We want local control. You cannot take that away from us, Commissioner Walker.
Thank you. Would like to speak on the next row.
Nicely done, Mark Sullivan.
It was nicely done.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is I was listening to myself at the end of this, and I was talking about there's a proposal that we tax us at a few cents per thousand and put some retired police officers in the schools. Well, I said retired people, which conjures this images of old people. We're going to put some old people in the schools to deter crime. Yeah, that works.
Well, I want to be sure before we run out of time here, and Mike's going to give me the sign anytime now, and it won't be this, it'll be something else. And I want to be sure that we get the one person that came up and said, now, wait a minute, I like Cheryl Walker and what she's suggesting. And here is that lady right now.
Remember your name, I know you've been here before. My name is Kathy Swenson, and I live on Sturgeon Court in Grants Pass. I'm a very shy person. I do not like to speak in public, but this display that I see from people here today is disgraceful, and I want to support Commissioner Walker. I read two papers, Medford Mail Tribune and the Daily Courier every day, and I see lots of crime. Even it's talked about in the Mail Tribune. Now, for some time, Jubilee Park has been the object of a lot of vandalism, and my brother-in-law, I have a sister who lives in Cape Junction. I appreciate your comment about those people needing protection as well. There have been just recently two vandalism of the library. They cleaned it up one time, and then the next day it was again.
No.
It was vandalism where the children's toys were even thrown out of the streets. There have been some that the sewer water or something dumped into the river. I mean, this is just on the top of my head, and I itemize things. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, well, that settles it. Bring in the governor.
Well, I appreciate the fact that this lady came forward, and it's got to take some kind of guts to stand up and say these things in this group. The only problem is That's not true what she said about the library, that the next day somebody came in and did it again. It's really helpful if you're going to give us nothing but anecdotal evidence, as Simon Hare puts, that you at least get it right.
Oh, and listen, at some point here, you have to play the clip where he says anecdotal, because this is one of the funniest things. And he can't, I guess his friends don't care enough about him to correct him when he's using the wrong words for stuff.
But he can hear people say it again and again and again. What's the matter with that?
Well, maybe he just thinks that people are saying it wrong. I remember here, a number of years ago, a friend of mine told me that I was saying one particular word wrong, and the word was exponential, and I was saying exponential, and I didn't know what the heck I was saying, but I was saying it anyway, and the guy was very nice to correct me for saying the wrong thing, and I looked it up. Oh, yes, it's very clear that it doesn't mean, or it means, or I was saying it with the proper meaning in mind, but I was saying it incorrectly. And in this particular case, Simon clearly means anecdotal, but he says antidotal as though you could just take a pill and fix everything.
Now, everybody out there, don't send us emails saying that Mike's microphone is not working well. We know that it's not. He's still conveying interesting information to you. And when he watches this back, he'll say, oh, yes, that's the point at which this happened. So he's going to get that fixed. Yeah. I wanted to say that when I first moved here to Grants Pass, I think the first year I was here, we're out in front of the Ann Basker Auditorium.
We want to hear your antidotes.
Out in front of the Ann Basker Auditorium, there was an old guy wearing a hat. That's who you got to watch out for in traffic, an old guy wearing a hat. He was going the wrong way on that street. He was angry. He was leaning on his horn. He was yelling out the window. All of those people were just going the wrong way. This is Cheryl Walker. She's absolutely convinced that we're all crazy, and she must save us from ourselves. And you saw, this is a fairly, if you were to believe Cheryl Walker, her letter is fairly convincing. Well, we really have, and if you don't know any better, and if the courier's not going to tell anybody, all right, one last person to speak. And, my choice of the last person to speak happens to be the last person that did speak that day. You'll be really surprised that I'm giving this character any time at all.
Okay, Mr. Matthews. Someone phone on, would you please turn it on?
Oh, yeah, not this guy.
Dale Matthews, Grants Pass.
Sit down.
As you can see, I told a few people about your meeting this morning. We played back the tape so that they could see what you were saying.
Oh, you're the reason for all this.
Whereas that Cheryl Walker told you, weren't you surprised, that a single commissioner could help declare the state of emergency and get the governor to come down here and take over. Just one commissioner. Maybe you thought it had to be all of you, or maybe two of you. No, just one. Well, Mr. Matthews, why would you call this an imperial attitude? Just one. 62 votes is all that separated her from her opponent. And you're complaining about, as she said, 51%, and that's all that it takes, and that's not fair. 62 votes. Look, this is America. We have to keep reminding you of this. And if you think that you don't like the way the votes went several times in a row by the citizens, there are other countries that would welcome that attitude. It's not going to be enough, Mr. Heck and Mr. Hare, for you to just sit by and watch while she sends the letter, because she's already been working on the governor, you know that. Now, there's only one way out of this for you two, and that's not to sit there quietly, as you've done in the past, and not say anything. You're going to be required by us, the citizens, to send your own letter to the governor. Dearest darling governor, do not do this. We don't want this. Keith Heck, and the citizens of Josephine County reject this idea. I, who have future political aspirations in the state, would say Simon here, I do not welcome this. It's not okay. If you sit there through that meeting next Thursday where no public comment is allowed, and you will be voting on this, because you've done this many times. You said that you weren't going to, but you do it routinely now. I just said on the meeting Monday, it was brought in for the first time, you discussed it for the first time, no public input, you voted on it. You do it all the time now. This is what's going to happen next Thursday. If you just say, no, we're not going to join you, that's not enough. You're going to have to send out a letter to retain any part of your credibility in this place. She can move to Arizona. If you intend to stay living here, this will be your legacy. Selling out our county charter, giving us over to the governor. The thing that you warned about us last time. Oh, if you don't vote for this levy, the governor will come. And now you're putting up with someone saying it's a good idea. What you should say when that comes up in these little meetings is, you know what? Don't do it. We're against it. Send a letter today.
What a blowhard.
Yeah. Well, you know, and you know, I'm sorry if my audio is crappy here, but essentially, this is what we have to look forward to if we don't deal with the O&C funding issue. If we don't deal with the big elephant, which is, you know, the federal government on this. We have to come to some sort of negotiated conclusion on the O&C situation. If we do not, it's either going to be the state coming down here ramming taxes down our throats, or us acquiescing and voting for our own tax increases. That is what is going to happen. That is what our government is going to push on us, unless we put, you know, people in there that have the stomach for the fight with the federal government. That's what we can look forward to.
Well, Simon Hare told us, he said, now, look, all we need to do is kind of sit around and wait till this summer sometime, and maybe we'll find out what the government has in mind, what the feds have in mind, and then perhaps we can react. This is their plan.
Yeah. No fire in the belly.
All right. I promised Mike. That's the end of the show. And so, good night, everybody. Sleep well. Your county is in wonderfully good hands.